Well, here we are. It is the end of 2024. And this year, I know a lot of people have said this year has been a terrible year for movies. But for me personally, this has been an amazing year for movies. I went to the theater 60 times, watched 43 brand new 2024 movies, and I have an entire list. I have them all ranked out from the worst to the best. Last video, I did the top 10 worst movies of 2024 that I saw. And now it's time for the top 10 best movies of 2024. And personally, there's a lot. I had so many movies that I absolutely loved that I thought about doing like a top 15. I'll say some honorable mentions at close to the end here, just because there's just so many really good movies, and there's some that I would have loved to have in my top 10, but just because the sheer volume of movies that I really enjoyed, they didn't quite make it. So we'll start off with number 10, which is Wicked. This movie I did not plan to go see this year at all. Actually, quite a lot of them are. When Wicked was coming out, I remember I watched the trailers and I was like, yeah, this is not really gonna be something that's gonna be my thing. I'm like, no, this is not gonna be my kind of thing. But I heard reviews about it and I was like, okay, you know what? I hear it's really good. I hear it's really, really good. Okay, I'll go see it. And I went and saw it and it was spectacular. Now, the only reason I put it at number 10 on my list is because it's a musical, and that does take some away from it. I'm not a musical guy. I do not like musicals really at all. And so because it's a musical, it does take away, but also the story and the set design and everything else about it ekes it just into that top 10. At number 9, this is a very, very controversial pick. I am absolutely sure of it, but Megalopolis. Now, here's the thing. Personally, I like really weird, kind of crazy movies. And Megalopolis, I was really hoping, I'd heard it was a really insane movie, and it was like a weird mind-bending movie. I was really hoping, I was really looking forward to this, and I got exactly what I was hoping for, exactly what I was looking for out of this movie. I think it's the kind of movie that it takes a couple of times to watch it to really start to get to. And I've only seen it once. But I do like the movies where the more you watch it, the more you get out of it. And this Megalopolis is definitely on that list of movies. I know a lot of people are not going to like it. It's a very controversial opinion, I'm sure, but I really enjoyed it. It's my kind of movie. It is. At number 8 is Beetlejuice. I watched Beetlejuice for the first time this year, and I ended up really liking it. And then I went and saw Beetlejuice, and I was like, this is really Tim Burton. This is the kind of Tim Burton that we haven't seen in a long time, and I really think that they hit it out of the park with Beetlejuice. At number 7 is Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, this one has kind of moved around up and down my list, but I think the reason it landed at number 7 is because overall the story itself isn't great. It is still a hilarious movie. So it gets in the top 10 because it's absolutely hilarious. It doesn't get as high as it could have been because I don't have nostalgia for most of the nostalgia characters. I didn't understand a lot of those references until I looked up stuff afterwards and everything like that. And then the story itself is kind of bleh. But overall, it is a very fun movie, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy all the Deadpool movies. At number 6, we have Gladiator 2. This is another one I am sure is going to be a very controversial opinion, but personally, I've seen Gladiator twice. I watched it the first time a couple years ago, then rewatched it this year in preparation for Gladiator 2. Unfortunately, though, I actually ended up seeing Gladiator 2 in a mystery movie before I rewatched Gladiator, so I ended up watching Gladiator 2 twice, as well as, so I've seen both movies twice. And not having really any nostalgia for the original Gladiator, I went in and I looked at, I just kind of thought of, like, during watching Gladiator 2 the second time, I just kind of thought to myself, I was like, there's just more stuff that in Gladiator 2 that I was like, yeah, and that, and that, and that. Like, the action I thought was better. I liked the political intrigue more in Gladiator 2. I think they're both really great films. And is Gladiator 2 better than the original? It's hard to say. I know a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people don't agree with me on the fact that I think I like Gladiator 2 more than the original Gladiator. I don't think that is going to be a very popular opinion among many, many people, but I just had it. There's a lot more memorable stuff that happens in Gladiator 2 over the original, and even though they kind of do focus a bit more on the legacy of Maximus and whatever. I just really enjoyed it. So, number 5, we have Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This one, when I first saw the trailer, it had Chris Hemsworth and Anna Taylor-Joy, and I was like, I'm sold. And I'm like, what is this? This is a Mad Max movie. Interesting. I've never watched a Mad Max movie. And we have a whole top 100 movies list that I've been going through over the last couple of years. And so one of those movies was Mad Max. So you can actually go see this. We've got videos on the original Mad Max and Mad Max Fury Road. And then so me and a friend, we watched those movies. I ended up watching all of the Mad Max movies in preparation for Furiosa. And like watching Furiosa, and also I also did play through the Mad Max video game as well. And so the Mad Max video game and Mad Max Fury Road are all take place in kind of the same area as Furiosa, and the kind of the same continuity there. Because a lot of all the older stuff, they just throw Max into just a couple different situations, different areas. None of it's connected, but they've started connecting some of this together. And now this one is a little interesting because I love the Mad Max universe. Like the whole thing, like it is just, it is fantastic. It is just weird and wild and exciting and interesting. But with the way Furiosa does the story structure, kind of pulled it down for me. Kind of like Wicked, how like the way the movie is made, like the way the whole thing is made. Kind of detracts from my enjoyment of the film. So like Wicked is a musical, not a fan of musicals. Furiosa is a movie that's gone over decades. I don't really like that. I don't really like those kinds of movies. But I still do really enjoy Furiosa, even if that is the type of movie I don't really enjoy. At number 4, we have Abigail. Abigail is one that I didn't even hear about until it came out in theaters, and then I heard people talking about, like, raving about this horror movie with a ballerina vampire or something like that. And I was like, whoa, okay, that sounds interesting. And I watched it and I was like, wow, this movie actually, it actually makes me want the characters to stay alive. Like I was actually sad, and I was like, no, not that character. Aw, I don't get that out of horror movies. Like there's two things that I don't get out of horror movies. One, care about the characters, and two, actually get scared. Those are two things that never happen in a horror movie. And granted, didn't get scared in Abigail either. But I will say that it was a movie that I was kind of disappointed. I was actually kind of sad when a character died, and I was like, "Whoa, that's big. That is crazy." Anyways, very good movie because you actually care about the characters, which makes some of the stuff. And at the end, I'm not going to say what happens, but there's something that they tease it like, "Oh, this thing could happen," and I was like, "Please do it, please do it, please do it!" And then they did it, and I was like, "Yeah!" I was so excited. It's kind of a ridiculous moment, but it was really fun. And Anyways, at number 3, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Now this one, I think Abigail and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes have been flip-flopping around for a good chunk of the time. Because sometimes I'll kind of, because I've been reordering them. I've been ordering them as I watch them, and then sometimes I end up reordering them as time goes on. Like, how much do I like a certain movie? How much do I remember it and everything? And when I saw the trailers for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, it's another one that I was like, yeah, no. Do I want to watch a movie about apes being human-like and humans being ape-like? Not really, no. But I had a coworker who was super super excited for this movie, and I was like, you know what? Okay, you know what? Let's give it a shot. Didn't really think that it was very intriguing or anything. And considering this takes place in the continuity of the Planet of the Apes movies from the 2010s instead of the 1970s, this was almost like watching Star Wars: A New Hope, because this was the first movie from the Planet of the Apes that I've ever seen. Never saw any other Planet of the Apes movie, and so I watched it. And it was like watching A New Hope, right? Because there's all this lore, like there's a significant time jump between the previous trilogy and this movie, and so there's all this lore about what happened in the previous trilogy that you do not know about, going into having this being the first movie, right? And so you go into it and you're like, whoa, this is kind of interesting, because it's like watching A New Hope, where they're kind of talking to like you have one character who's older and who has some of the information, and he's passing it down, and it's a whole post-apocalyptic kind of thing. Hundreds of years later, you also do have this whole thing of you can go back and watch all those other movies and then come back to it, and it's a different experience. So you got to have two different experiences in the same movie, depending on if you've seen the previous movies or not. And that is fantastic. And after watching that, I did go and watch all of the other Planet of the Apes movies, and then came back and rewatched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And having it being something that's a new franchise that I'm like, yeah, let's get Planet of the Apes in there, you know? I definitely enjoyed that. So that comes in at number 3. Number 2 is Dune Part 2. Now, this movie has been stuck up at my number 1 slot for a long time. And like, this is probably like the second or third movie that I watched in 2024, and it just stayed up at number 1. And Dune Part 2, like, I think I ended up giving it a 9, because I was like, this is the most epic movie that has come out like this decade. Like, it is spectacle. It is like, whatever CGI they have in there is flawless. The story is amazing. The spectacle is there. The acting is spot on. The script, immaculate. When Lord of the Rings came out, I was a kid. I was a baby when Lord of the Rings came out. So I didn't get to go and watch Lord of the Rings as it was coming out in the theaters. So this is kind of like my Lord of the Rings in a sense. I watched Dune Part 1 in theaters. Now, unfortunately, unlike the Lord of the Rings, the Dune series is not a perfect trilogy when they put out the third one. It won't be a perfect trilogy because the first one is significantly weaker than the second one. But the way I've described it is Dune Part 1 set the table, so in Dune Part 2 you can feast. It's like, it is just, it was immaculate. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. It was like everything about Dune Part 2 was just amazing. So that is why it had been sitting at number 1 for a while. But before I do give you my number 1 movie, I want to go ahead and just give some shout outs to some movies that I would have loved to have in my top 10, but there's not enough spots, I guess. One of them was Twisters. I really enjoyed, this is another one that I just didn't expect to be going into my, I just didn't think I'd be going to see it. I was like, I'm not a guy who likes seeing disaster movies, but I ended up watching Twister, really enjoyed Twister. And then we went and watched Twisters, and I really enjoy Twisters. And that was another one that I thought was just really good. Great, just like blockbuster movie. That was fantastic. Another one is Inside Out 2. That one was, and like that, the reason that one didn't get to my top 10 is because that one is, it's a kid's movie, it's a family movie, not quite my kind of thing, but still really, really good. Nosferatu is another one that was really good. This one didn't quite make it even up to my top 15 slots, because I've watched that story 3 different times in the last couple months. And I think I just kind of realized, like after watching the movie, because it was a visual masterpiece. Like the acting and everything about Nosferatu was immaculate. However, I just don't think I just don't really like the story. I think that's just the problem. I just don't really care for the story. So you could do an amazing rendition of it. Like top tier, no one can do it better. Still not really gonna like it. I did enjoy it, but like it just isn't gonna be a movie I'm gonna want to watch again. Also, Speak No Evil is another one. Really enjoyed it. I think it's a remake of a movie that came out a couple years ago. I don't know why they did the remake. I'm not sure. Like I don't know all the history and everything behind it. But it had James McAvoy in it, and I went and ended up going to see it because I heard it was really good, and I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed what they did with it. I like how like James McAvoy and the wife play this kind of crazy couple, and I was like, yeah, I was liking that movie a lot. And then also Sonic the Hedgehog 3 just came out a couple weeks ago. Really enjoyed that. Actually, I think Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is probably the best out of. I'd say it's probably my favorite out of the 3 Sonic the Hedgehog movies. Definitely a really good, movie. And then also Transformers 1 is another one that came out. Again, kind of another more of a kids movie. I did a video on all the Transformers movies because I watched Transformers 1. Unfortunately, it's the best out of them, so that means that none of the other Transformers movies were anywhere near as good as Transformers 1. But I do hope that they continue doing more of these Transformers movies in this animated style about Cybertron and everything like that, because that is far more interesting than any of the stuff that they've done on Earth at all. So let's go ahead and finish off with the number 1 movie of the year for me, and that is The Substance. This movie had been kind of floating around, bouncing around in different spots and everything like that. And I think I ended up having it at number 2 for a while. And then I kind of came to realize, I was like, I think this might have to surpass Dune Part 2 as my number 1 movie of the year. And it is very stylized. I love what they did with the style of the movie. It has very clean cut shots, over the top sound design, and visuals as well. They really wanted to sell the over the top, and I love the way they did the music and everything like that. When it was Sue, a lot of the music had this kind of like club vibe to it. Where it's just like kind of like that, with the way they did it. And just the whole story is a crazy, wild one. And I just think the way they did the whole movie was just perfect. Like, I can't think of anything that they could have done better with it. It was just just what they've done with the movie itself, in the story. Because the story is basically about a woman who takes this mysterious substance that ends up splitting her into 2 people, an older version of herself and a younger version of herself, and then she uses the younger version of herself to get her career back and the fame and the glory and everything like that, and then the older version starts becoming resentful of her younger self, and then you've got tension between the 2 selves, and like some of it is like, does this feel like real world? 'Cause I think it takes place, what feels like an alternate version of reality. And yeah, I think just what they did with it, it was very heavily stylized and just kind of makes the whole movie pop. And out of the last couple of years, there's been usually like one movie that has really stood out. Every year, there's one movie that really stood out as like this movie, and it's usually smaller budget movies. Usually, kind of a little bit more. I was gonna say horror genre, but last year's wasn't. In 2022, it was The Menu for me. In 2023, it was Asteroid City, and this year it is The Substance. All movies that just kind of really stand out and are really creative in their own way and really do something really interesting. And so that is what makes my number one movie of 2024. And if you guys liked this video, thank you for sticking around for this long. And if you guys want to see a little bit more, I am going to do a video on movies that I'm looking forward to in 2025. I will be doing that sometime soon here. So if you guys are interested in seeing what I'm looking forward to, and just because I'm looking forward to it does not mean I think it's going to be good, because some of those movies on the list, I am expecting them to be dumpster fires. And I'm going to bring my marshmallows so I can roast them. Anyways, thank you for sticking around, and I will see you in the next one.